Okay, continuing, we're on page 249 talking about this little shortcut guy. Yeah, it's pretty cool. The next topic on page 250 is the normal flow. The normal flow of a website is these, 4 paragraphs, or just 5 paragraphs, are going to be just one after the other, right? I mean, nothing fancy, because that's the normal flow. Whatever the order they appear in the web page is the order they're going to appear on the screen. Kind of makes sense. Now, I've used the term block tag a lot, haven't gone into an awful lot of detail, but a block tag by its nature is going to always consume all available width, unless you tell it otherwise, and in this case, we did tell it otherwise. I did tell it I wanted a content width, a width of 200. Okay, but what if, for example, I don't want things to be like this? What if I want them to be side by side? How could I do that? How could I tell something that I want it side by side? Well, okay, the first thing we're going to do is I need a lot of text. So I'm just going to create me a text paragraph, and so instead of typing, I'm going to just copy because I'm lazy. So I got Mary Had a Little Lamb. Cool. Now inside this paragraph, I'm going to add a image. Okay, you guys remember how images work? It's just an IMG, right? Space source equals, and I'm going to use this little guy. And every time you use an image tag, you're going to have alternate text that says, me feeding Annie. By the way, Annie is a full-grown cat now. This is an old picture. Okay, so now I have an image tag inside a paragraph. What is this going to look like? Well, first of all, I didn't tell it any. Well, I'll just do it first. Remember the difference between margin and padding? Okay, so there it is. It's inside the paragraph, but that touches. I mean, that literally touches the outside. So, I don't have a border around this guy. So if I was to use padding, okay, or margin to scoot this guy over so the letters wouldn't be touching, right? The most appropriate thing would be the one on the outside. What's the one on the outside? It's margin. Okay, cool. By the way, that's not what I'm trying to show you here. I'm just trying to make a point. Okay, so now I want to interrupt the normal flow. Instead of having it do it in sequence, I want to interrupt. So there's a thing called float. And so I'm going to go here to this image tag and say style equals float. And so I'm going to float it to the left. Now you might say, rightfully so, well, wait a minute, it already was on the left. So ask yourself this question. If I float something to the left that was already on the left, is that image going to move? Nope. But what will the text do? Ooh. Nothing. Did I misspell something? Oh, I misspelled style. Wow, that'll mess you up. Okay, let's try that again. Now that I got it spelled correctly. Okay. So the image didn't actually move. So floating the image, in this case, didn't move the image. It was already there, but it made all of the rest of the stuff flow around it. Doesn't it kind of look like it is flowing around it? Okay, by the way, I hate that it's touching, so I am going to fix that. Doggone it. So I'm going to go to my image guy here. And so I could just do one of them, right? I could. So I'm going to say margin, and I'm going to go ahead and say margin right, since I don't really care about the margin on the left. Margin right, it doesn't need to be much, 2 pixels, okay? That's fine. It'll be visible enough. I mean, 2 pixels, you might think, that's not much. But, yeah, it is. That's visually separating that thing. Okay, so I floated something. All right. Let's make it float to the right. What do you think is going to happen? Well, it's going to look like that, except it's going to be on the other edge. Cool? All right. So let's go here and say float right. And so now it should look Well, except for I only put padding on one side. Now, padding over here is a little different because I've got, breaks. It is quite possible that one of those actually would touch, but I can't tell. Okay. So that's how you make something flow around something else. I'm going to put that back because I'm going to show you something else here. So I'm going to get this back to left. So let's say you're halfway through that paragraph, and on this second stanza, or down here someplace, okay? Somewhere down here you decided, I'm kind of done with that float thing. I want to start over. I'm going to break this into small paragraphs. Okay, just give me a second to do that. So this would be that. And then I'm going to make this a paragraph. And put this here. That's probably enough. I'm just trying to separate these guys into smaller paragraphs. Let's see what that looks like before I do anything. Okay, so now you see multiple paragraphs. It's still flowing around it. But let's just say, for example, that right here on this second stanza, I did not want it to float. I want the float to go away. In other words, I wanted the float to appear on the first one, but not the second one. So how do you, once you've got a float going, how do you turn it off? Okay, there's a way to do that. So I'm going to go to the second one here, and I'm going to say style. I spell it right this time. Float. I'm saying clear, and I'm going to say clear left. So float turns it on, clear turns it off. So only this first paragraph will be to the side. All subsequent paragraphs will be below, and I only have to do it once, and then from that point on the floating is turned off, and so we're back to the normal flow. So only this paragraph floated, and from here on we're back to just doing the normal thing. Cool? Okay. So that's everything you needed to know about float and clear. Okay, page 252, they go in a little bit more detail about making a picture float. It's often used in things like pictures, okay? Because, you don't want a picture to be above a paragraph. You want it, like newspaper articles and magazines. You want the picture to be embedded in the text. So step one, embedded in the text. How did I do that? How did I embed an image inside text? Well, I quite literally put it inside the paragraph, okay? And by the way, it doesn't have to be at the beginning. I could say, I don't know, hello. Well, who cares if I misspelled it? Now this will look a little weird because it'll in fact, it'll look ridiculous, but I'll show you what it looks like. Because we told it that I wanted this thing to float to the left, it didn't really matter what was on the left-hand side. If I told it to float left, it's going to say, dude, I'm moving over there. Cool? All right. Let me get rid of that since that was kind of dumb. It also doesn't really matter physically where it is. As long as it's inside that paragraph and you told it to float, it's going to go to the left-hand side or right, depending on which one you tell me. Okay. So clear left, I could do clear left. I could do clear both. For example, let's say you had one image on the right and one image on the left. We could do that. Hey, let's do that just for the heck of it. Okay. I'm gonna use the same image, so cut me a little bit of slack here. So I'm just gonna put it, I don't know, right here in the middle of this guy, and so this one's gonna go to the right. That one's going to be to the left. And here I'm going to say clear both. Okay, here we go. All right, so I have this guy. And then we cleared the floats and we're down. Cool? All right. Kind of weird. All right. So on page 255, they talk about this kind of, sort of another way of making things float. it's not intended for this, so I'm going to breeze over it. Anyway, it's called overflow. Overflow is really about what happens when something just won't fit. I've got a huge image, not a little one, but a big image somewhere, and it's not going to fit. What do you want me to do? You want me to just crop it? I mean, just show me whatever you got, like whatever appears in the upper left-hand corner? Is that okay? And so there's some choices. Visible. There's a table on page table 6.2 on page 255 that talks about whether it's visible, hidden, automatic, or scroll. Scroll is pretty cool because that'll automatically pull up the scroll bars, and you can actually see the bigger thing. You can abuse this to do something similar to what we just did, but don't do that. That's kind of dumb. In fact, I don't like the fact that, the book kind of hinted at that was a viable option, because it's not. Okay, just like I just finished telling you, on page 257, they talk about, well, what if I do want all these boxes, all 4 of these boxes to line up perfectly right? Well, you can kind of alter the box model. There's a thing called box sizing. Now, I'm going to tell you, but I'm also going to tell you, don't ever use this. It's like cheating, okay? I would much prefer that you actually learn the box model and use it than to tweak the box model to make it easy. I don't like that. I'd much rather you just learn the box model. Cheating might help you put something together and get it all lined up. But the next person who comes up behind you is going to look at it and go, what on earth is this? This doesn't make any sense. So don't do things that are weird or outrageous just for a tiny bit of convenience. Go ahead and learn this stuff, all right? All right, so I'm going to go ahead and say, there's on page 257, there is a thing called box sizing, and you can tell it to go to the border box. It would make things easier to line up, but don't do it, okay? Just don't do it. All right. On page 258 is a significant concept, something that we're going to be doing a lot of, and that is taking our web page and breaking it up into chunks that we can deal with. All right. So I'm actually going to start over with a brand new web page from scratch, and we'll show you what we're talking about. Figure 613 and 614 on page 258 basically tell you what a typical wireframe thing looks like. So these are honest to God names of classes or HTML5 structural elements. So there's a HTML5 structural element called header, nav, main, and footer. There isn't one called wrapper, but we can make a class to do that. So this is kind of sort of the way things work. So remember how I had an image inside an image? An image inside a paragraph? Remember how they were kind of nested? Well, that's how this is going to be. It's going to be a wrapper, and inside the wrapper is going to be a header, a nav, a main, and a footer. Over here, it's the same thing. This 2-column thing. We're going to have a wrapper, and inside that's going to be a header. Inside that's going to be a nav and a main, except now I'm going to use that float thing to make that work. Okay? All right. Kind of sort of makes sense. Okay. So I'm going to do this kind of slowly. In fact, I'm going to probably should just create me another one. I'm going to go here and say add new HTML, and I'm going to call this one wireframe. Okay, so cool. So inside the body of my document, I'm going to put a bunch of stuff. The first one that you saw was a class. Remember that? Okay, so it's going to be a div, and I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call it, what did they call it? Wrapper. And okay, I've got started. Unfortunately, we're up at the 15-minute mark, so we'll pick this thing up again in just a few.